pier at Clacton-on-Sea in Essex, there's a seawater pool which is home for a killer whale called Nemo. Now he's for sale. How much is a killer whale worth in the open market?
The pressure group Greenpeace wants to buy Nemo and put him back in the sea he came from. The Department of the Environment won't allow him to be moved until they're convinced it's in his best interests. It was way back in 1968 when Britain's first captive killer was flown in from Seattle.
Flamingo Park near Malton in Yorkshire often steals the zoo headlines. Their domestic dolphins are among Europe's most popular attractions. But their bottlenoses may soon be out of joint. The latest arrival, now settling in, could steal a lot of their thunder. Although Cuddles belongs to the dolphin family, she and her mate show little of the dolphin's friendly sense of fun, at least before they're tamed. With a mouthful of large teeth and a habit of grabbing at anything edible in sight, including other dolphins or even men, they've earned themselves a pretty vicious reputation.
Well, whoever first called them killers has a lot to answer for. But even vicious reputations aren't enough to keep the customers rolling in. In 1981, Nemo arrived on Clacton Pier with two other whales caught off Iceland. The first died after a week. The second died 2 years later. Nemo is owned by an American company, International Animal Exchange, but in Clacton, they're both represented by the pier manager, Frank McGinty. I asked him whether Nemo was still a big attraction.
Yes, he is. It's difficult to say just how big because it's a free gate into the killer whale show and the sea lion show. By that I mean anybody that walks on the pier and paid their toll can go and see him free. So all we can tell you really is in the height of the summer, between the whale and the sea lions, we have 5 shows a day and we hold around 700 people and they're usually full.
Now, the whale represents a big investment, so what do you propose to do about it?
We have already made our decisions. 18 months ago, we asked International Animal Exchange to find another home for him, not just from our commercial point of view, but for the whale's sake.
Now, Greenpeace talk of buying the animal and returning it to the wild. How much is it worth, and what do you think of the idea?
He's worth between £250,000 and £500,000 because his history records that's how much they've been sold for. The idea, in theory, may be lovely, but in practical terms, I don't think they've got the financial clout to buy the expertise in order to give the whale a fair chance.
The Greenpeace idea is certainly ambitious. Buy Nemo, load him on a plane, fly him to Iceland, reintroduce him to the wild in the hope of joining his old family. But is it in the whale's best interests? He could find enough to eat, but would he find his family? Would it be an improvement on life in captivity?
Well, in the wild, usually you'll find them in a small family unit, a male, a few females, adolescents, or alternatively, a group of solely made up of males. Occasionally they are found in singles, but it's not the normal thing.
But Greenpeace would like to buy him off you and put him back in the sea. What do you feel about that?
I think it's an irresponsible idea. They sell this idea to the public and the public believe it. They haven't thought it out truly, and they're not being strictly honest when they say they can do it.
Why are you apprehensive about what would happen if they did put him back in the sea?
Because basically I don't think it's fair to put a single animal that is very human orientated back in the ocean on his own. I think he'll follow boats. He'll go to people. To put him back, I think it can be done. I think you need to put back 2 or 3 animals that have been literally taught to be at least wary of people, wary of boats, to give them any fair chance of readjusting.
Plenty of scientists agree with that judgment, others don't. Greenpeace collects money to buy Nemo and let him go free. Last June they raised £45,000 and offered the cheque to Nemo's owners. They bounced it straight back. Mark Glover represents Greenpeace and he thinks they're on the right track.
there are certain aspects, of course, which are questionable because it's never been actually done before. This sort of project's never been undertaken before. But what is certain is that this animal in its present state is doomed. It's not going to live very long under these conditions.
This one's been brainwashed, though. It'd be at a grave disadvantage if you put it back in the sea.
Well, again, there's no actual evidence for that. It's managed to learn a number of tricks, very simple tricks in this pool. There's no reason to suggest that it can't unlearn those and learn to survive back in its natural home. In fact, it's spent more than half of its life in the wild, so it should be able to readapt very easily. And, of course, we would take all precautions to ensure that that was the case. We would make sure that it could catch live fish and fend for itself in the wild.
It's still pretty much of a gamble, isn't it? Don't you think, on the whole, it would be better for it to go to another sea zoo?
No, absolutely not. By travelling to another zoo, it faces a whole series of pools for the rest of its life, being transported from one to the other to make more money for its owners. At each stage, it faces a very stressful journey and a very severe risk of dying, in fact, during that transition. But what is certain is that it is going to die in captivity and within a fairly short period of time.
Many of these whales have died in captivity. No killer has ever been born in captivity. They've all been captured in the wild, and most of them die within a relatively short time, though at sea they might live up to 100 years. Perhaps, in the first place, they shouldn't be taken from the wild at all. We know surprisingly little about their lives, although there is a great deal of research going on. There are killer whales in every part of every ocean, but they prefer coastal waters. That's where they find their prey: fish, seabirds, seals, even other whales, but not man. For all the reputation, there's not one authentic record of a killer ever taking a man without provocation. In fact, there have been occasions when they've cooperated with man in hunting other whales. They hunt in packs, social units known as pods, an extended family of a dozen or two. Tall dorsal fins, blunt heads, heavy-bodied whales. Average length overall is about 25 feet, and they displace up to 8 tons. The scientists are unraveling the mysteries of whale society, and they've been joined by workers funded from the showbiz end. SeaWorld, the biggest whale show operators in America, have their own research project off Alaska. They're studying the communication, age structure, and feeding habits of 100 whales. And what do SeaWorld have to gain? Well, for 10 of the study whales, the next big splash could be here, SeaWorld of San Diego. It has to be said that in the best show zoos, like the one at SeaWorld in California, the standard of management is very high. Maybe there is a glimmer of hope for the future of the man-whale relationship. The SeaWorld project will mean improved understanding of the species, more care in the taking of whales, better management, and more exciting shows for the public. The way ahead. But what it won't do is to help Nemo in his lonely pool at Clacton. His future is uncertain. He's for sale to the highest bidder, but the Department of the Environment will have to be convinced that he's going to a suitable home, whether it's another zoo or the open ocean, before they grant the necessary license. And that's the kind of decision it's not easy to make.
Earlier this week, the DOE applied more pressure in an effort to resolve Nemo's future. They've told the owners that they must act quickly. And if a swift, acceptable and voluntary solution isn't found, the department will use compulsory powers under the Endangered Species Act and make the decision for them. Yesterday, Greenpeace applied formally...